Hello and welcome to All Villa No Filler, a podcast all about Aston Villa, the world's greatest football team. Please do remember to subscribe to the show, follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So, Aston Villa celebrated their 42-year wait to reach the Champions League with a 3-0 win against Young Boys. Frankie, it was men against boys, wasn't it?
It was men against boys. It was bloody Andre the Giant turning up to fight a group of toddlers. Absolutely unbelievable. You wait that long. You wait 5 decades, whatever it's been. Since 1982, since we were last there, or 83, I guess. And then, you think back to it. You think that was before. That was 12 years before Britpop. You know, it was.
You
It
put to
was.
put it into some context, yes, it was a long time
the,
ago.
the Terminator hadn't been released. Blade
Yeah.
Runner had only just come out to major flop reviews, even though it's one of the greatest films of all time. And tonight, finally, we return, and it could not have gone any better, George. Oh my goodness, we battered them. And look, I said it in the preview. Young boys concede lots of chances. They concede lots of goals. I don't understand why they replaced their championship winning manager with a manager who managed a team that conceded 71 goals in the league last season. And guess what? They've got the worst defence in the Swiss league right now. But they did perform well against Galatasaray to go through in the Champions League. Came to play against us. And I think in the first 20 minutes, I think it did look like we were struggling to adapt to that pitch. But
Yeah.
then once we got going, I mentioned the Terminator, George. That's what we were. The young boys tonight, they'll be waking up in the middle of the night screaming for their mummies, their old mummies. Because we just it was it could not. I think when you start in the Champions League, you want a big win to get going, don't you? You don't want
Sure.
it hanging over you that you can't win or you're struggling to get any points. So just start off with a big win, get your goals in early. Everyone has a good performance. Suddenly, all the players, it adds to their confidence. It adds to their level of believing I am an elite player and I belong at this level, and I can do it. And I think it will help us in the league, and I think it will help us in the Champions League. George, I mean, I am going to write a Shakespearean play tonight. John Duran as like the lead character or something.
Well, there is something quite Shakespearean about John Duran, isn't there? I think he would fit in quite nicely in a Shakespearean play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I completely. I mean, it takes all the pressure off the Bayern Munich game, if ever there was any pressure. You start off with a very comprehensive win, and you go into that game in early October, knowing that you've got that in the bank. That's in the bank, and also just the nature of the win as well, the confidence boosting nature of the win, the fact that we were so dominant, so in control, could and should have scored, four, five, six. God knows
Mm.
why Watkins's goal was disallowed,
No, it was ridiculous.
which was a shame. But you're right. I think the first 10, 20 minutes or so, I think there was that sort of, oh, this is I don't know, it's the Champions League and the
Yeah.
the occasion and the new kit and the pitch and the young boys ultras and all the rest of it. That does take a bit of time to sort of get used to. But once we did, we just clicked into gear, didn't we? And it was
Mm.
it was it was it was plain sailing, really. Yeah, I thought obviously getting that early goal, Yuri Tillemans, I mean, great finish, fantastic set piece routine again. Um,
Austin McPhee would be in Lord of the Rings leading the Fellowship, and he'd be better than Gandalf because he wouldn't fall down that massive pit when the Balrog attacks him. Austin McPhee would probably have some weird set piece set up to
yeah,
trick the Balrog, and he falls down, and Austin McPhee he'd probably
Fro
destroy the ring at the start of the first move.
Frodo questioning why he's man marking the keeper. But yeah, but the ball,
Wizard.
it was well worked. Ball played in, finds its way to Yuri Tillemans, and a lovely finish into the corner of the net. That was what, just under 20 minutes in, and that
Mm.
obviously calms you down. You get that first goal.
That was the moment, wasn't it? That's where it turned, and it was like Villa went from looking tentative and a little nervy to
Mm.
like we're
We've
better than
got
this.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then, big mistake at the back from the defenders, and
Yeah.
thank you very much from Jacob Ramsey to score the second, and
One of
then
our own.
one of
How
our own
beautiful is
in
that,
the Champions League. Amazing, amazing,
Yeah.
brilliant. I
And
mean, it's
in light of Gary Shaw
Gary
passing
Shaw, of
away
course.
recently, who was also one of our own. It was just nice to have that moment that we're back in the Champions League and we're a club that still produces our own players. It can come in there and to be there tonight and score a goal like that, and a performance as well that Jacob Ramsey had. I thought he was fantastic. I thought everyone was great, but it was
Absolutely.
magic.
And what a performance and win in Gary Shaw's memory. Obviously, one of the heroes
Mm.
of '82. Such a brilliant player. Incredible that he didn't win any England caps. The
Oh,
fact that he was
mad.
part of a Champions League and league winning side. But yeah, no, a lovely sense of sort of historical symmetry that kind of one of our own has turned up today and scored one of the goals. So that was really good to see. And then second half was really all about just control, just
Yeah.
controlling the game. Um, John Duran. I mean, can I just say, what a finish! What a finish that was! The
Do,
angle from behind. He does not score straightforward goals. He
does the
doesn't score
best player?
tap-ins.
Do we
It's
have the best striker in the world? Is Erling Haaland like just on borrowed time here?
the
Like,
the bend he put on that was Roberto Carlos-esque. It
yeah,
started about 5 yards outside the post and just curved in. Absolutely phenomenal finish. And unfortunate in the way that was disallowed because we get into that discussion of, how far back do you
yeah.
draw play? I
But
mean, it was
come on, we love the shithousery though, don't we? When
we
he
do.
jumps on the, he's been around Emmy Martinez too
He's
long.
been
He's
around Emi Martinez. I don't know if I can handle too many more, shithousery type players. But while we've got them, we might as well enjoy them.
yeah,
And yeah, Duran obviously scoring what was unfortunately a disallowed goal, but at the
yeah,
time thinking he'd scored it and running up to celebrate in front of the young boys ultras, which meant that he was a man with a target on his back,
yeah.
as far as the fans were concerned for the rest of the game. It was a bit of sort of like, it's a bit of Punch and
Just a
Judy
bit
stuff,
of
really.
banter, isn't
Just a
it?
bit of banter.
That's what they say when they defend themselves for stuff that's like
Yeah, it was just
irredeemable.
banter.
Yeah,
So yeah, so that was funny. But
yeah,
it's one of those things that if you're not 2 or 3 nil up and that goes against you, you are
yeah.
quite annoyed.
Well,
You could
The Watkins one was outrageous.
The
I
Watkins
can't
one was
believe they gave that.
unbelievable. It
Yeah.
was it was it was ridiculous. And the fact that they checked the Onana one, as in
Mm,
the referee went to the screen for one which even I could see from my,
yeah.
armchair in Cardiff. Uh and yet Watkins's one was almost, disallowed straight away without any sense of check or anything. It was just, again, it's that consistency of refereeing which we
Mm,
always complain about, really. But it's easy to get frustrated about it, uh, if we'd lost the game, but because of
yeah.
obviously the result, the nature of the win, you can sort of brush it aside a little bit. But yeah, no, I think disappointing from a young boys' perspective. I think, their fans, I know they've started the season really badly. They're bottom of the Swiss league. I think they'll be really disappointed with how their players
Mm,
reacted and responded and sort of approached the game. But yeah, from our perspective, the way that we sort of gained control of the game
mm,
and just didn't let it go. I think it's just phenomenal. I just think it
yeah.
was just such a brilliant, comprehensive, mature, professional performance from everybody.
Yeah, and he's set us up completely for the Champions League now. It's brilliant. It's brilliant to have that start and just know we can take that into the Premier League and the Champions League, and all of our players just given that sense of I belong here. So the first 25 minutes, I thought that young boys were good until Tielemans scored. I thought you know, they were quite well set up where their two strikers in the midfield were quite close to Tielemans and Onana. So
Mm.
we found it really difficult to play through them for a while. Adding in, the pitch itself was difficult. I thought Ramsey at first struggled a little bit to get used to the pitch, and when I heard he was changing his boots, I was like actually not that surprised. But once we just got that goal and a brilliant ball from McGinn as well for that,
Yeah.
it just felt like Villa then just took control totally. But one thing I would say is that first 25 minutes the area that was really worrying me was the Bogart area.
Mm.
It was Coley, their left midfielder for the young boys, and Bogart's. There's just obviously it's so hard for him just to come into the Premier League and the Champions League straight in as he has
Yeah.
done. He's probably
Yeah. Yeah.
ahead of
It's
schedule,
it's it's a
really.
it's a real baptism of fire. I don't think even
Yeah,
Emery would have really wanted him to
but
be playing this soon in his development.
but there were two free kicks he gave away. It's again naivety, and which is where they could have scored. But it was crucial that Villa didn't concede an early goal, and that we kept a clean sheet at the Wankdorf. Uh,
Yes. Very good.
um,
Were you building up to that one,
I was
Frankie?
waiting to drop that in somehow. I thought about it.
Very good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
but yeah. So but I think Bogart was the one when he came off for Concert. or for Diego Carlos. That was the substitution I thought was going to happen at halftime. It did.
Mm.
It makes me think that might be what we see against Wolves this weekend. That Carlos and Konsa right area, particularly when
Yes,
they've
and
got.
what just sorry, just to say, young boys as well. That they're good from set pieces. They're good from free kicks. They do have very physical players that they were sort of aiming
Yeah.
for. And I think having Carlos there and Konsa then as right as your right back, it just adds that sort of
Hmm.
when you're matching up physically to their forward players. So
Yeah, and
it did make sense.
I think we dealt well with Gamvula, who's a difficult striker, playing as a big physical lad, scored a few goals this season, and Ugrinic. I think he was their best player. I think he was really good. If you look, if you look at his FPRF stats, he looks like he's a really all-rounded player and could probably play outside of Switzerland, I think. But other than that, I think I mean a few other all roads go through Yuri Tielemans. All roads lead to Yuri
Oh
Tielemans.
God, yeah,
That
yeah, yeah,
third goal that Onana scored was firstly a brilliant finish from Onana.
yeah.
3 goals now. It's already I think it's as many as he scored for Everton his whole time there.
That's
Great
true.
finish, but Tielemans' work pushing forward that late in the game, holding onto the ball. He's such an interesting technique. He's such a stocky little bullock of a player, but he looks like somebody who shouldn't be as good as he is at football. But
Mm.
he's technically so wonderful, and his vision is so like he has been our main man this season. I think
Oh
as
yeah,
good as
yeah.
everyone's been, it all goes through him. And that third goal was a perfect example of what he can do. Not just when he's the metronome making all the passing happen, but just getting forward and making stuff happen as well. By beating a man and laying off a pass where it needs to happen. Morgan Rogers as well, though. Flipping out, mate. Like, do you know what Morgan Rogers reminds me of? Back in like the early 2000s and the 90s, there used to be loads of Brazilian mercurial players like Jalminha, one of my all-time favorite players, Denilson, who was at Real Betis. You'd have players like Rivaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo. All of these players I don't feel like Brazil quite have produced as many of them in recent years, save like Neymar and all that. But I look at Morgan Rogers and I think you look like an old school Brazilian player because
Mm.
you're big, you're tall, you're physical, you're strong, but you have all this you have this wonderful touch, you have this amazing technique where you can turn a man and then turn again. And like there was one moment tonight where you could hear Rio Ferdinand gasp. And it's
Yeah, when he
interesting.
megged that player, yeah, yeah, that's right.
That's
Yeah.
2 games now where you've heard Carragher on Sky and you've heard Ferdinand tonight and McCoy tonight being like, it's Morgan Rogers is class. And it's like the rest of football is
Are
waking up
catching
to
up.
how good this
Yeah.
player is. Um, like I say, he looks to me like an old school Brazilian player.
Yeah.
And again, the sort of player who can score from 25 yards if he wants to.
Sort of Adriano-esque, I suppose, like
So,
as in has the strength, but also the technique with the ball
hmm.
to get
It's,
past the player as well.
he
Yeah.
was unplayable. He looks like he's on his way to just being a genuine bona fide potential world class player. Honestly, I mean that. I think he's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a few players like that in the Villa squad where, I don't think lots of people have really cottoned on to how good they actually are. Even someone like Ramsey, I know he was linked with Spurs and stuff, but coming back
Yeah.
from a really big series of injuries actually last year. I think he's probably got like fallen off the radar of a lot of clubs. But now he's sort of back at least started the last couple with Bailey being injured,
Mm.
and on the score sheet again playing very well. McGinn had a fantastic game. Just
He did.
all of those players just controlled the game. Even if they were put under pressure, they knew just if they needed to pull away, pass it back to a Torres or a Carlos when he came on, or a Konza, and then just build up again. Just keep the ball, maintain possession. It's that sort of that squeeze element of controlling that possession, moving the ball forward, waiting for the outlet, waiting for the Dean overlap. All that sort of stuff was going on, and yeah, and young boys just didn't have an answer to it at all. They just
No.
couldn't. They couldn't deal with that sort of our quality and our sort of tactical nous as well. And then
Mm.
once we did go 2-0 up, we sort of played that sort of out of possession 4-4-2,
Yeah.
which we managed really well. And it was just a really straightforward, comprehensive performance. I think
Mm.
arguably that's our best result of the season so far, really. I know you might think that the Swiss league is the Swiss league and young boys
Mm.
aren't then that they're not the most technically fantastic side, but in the Champions League debut with everything that comes with it,
Yeah.
players we played, I
Yeah.
think best result of the season.
and yeah, like last season, we found out how difficult it is to play away from home. It doesn't matter
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
standard of opposition. I think we won one game away last season at
Yeah.
Alkmaar. Otherwise, we were, lost at Warsaw, overawed by the occasion. I think
Yeah.
overall, we drew with Zielinski away. We drew at Ajax away. We lost at Lille. We lost at Olympiacos. So, and the thing is, all of those experiences from last season have to have helped going into this season. And I know young boys are not in good form. I think they're better than what they're showing. I think I do actually think they have quite a few
Well,
good
they have to. I
players.
mean, they were league champions last season.
Yeah,
You can't change that much in 2 or 3 months.
yeah,
They,
and
clearly there's quality there. Um, and obviously, they it's the pitch and the fans as well.
mm,
There was a lot of talk pre-match as well about the teams that have gone there and lost in the past. Spurs, United have struggled there before. That there is something about playing there which is difficult for opposition players.
mm.
But it looked like a training match. It really
Yeah,
did.
yeah, and it was just great. The Villa, adapted to that pitch, and like I say, I think it was very good that we didn't concede early because we
Yeah,
gave them a couple of chances, and it was. I think if we conceded early, that's when the occasion might have got to us a bit more. But overall, I mean, just to see Ramsey back as well, just scoring goals and playing that well, it's just. Oh, it's so magic. It's so because we've all known how brilliant he is. Um, and to now see him sort of back and immediately firing. And Buendia as well came on. And there were like
yeah,
two or three moments Buendia had that were like,
yeah,
yeah, it
really
looks like
good.
he hasn't missed a second of football for a
I
year.
know. Well, this is it. I mean, again, we talk about the strength and depth, the players coming off the bench. I mean, three players at the end, 85 minutes in, Barkley, Buendia, and Matson. I mean, you know, those
Are, we-
players those
are we
players
going to
will
win the
go into
Champions League?
most Premier League teams.
Are we going to win the Champions League?
Hey, that's a spicy question right there, Frankie.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think in its current format with this league, and the top few clubs in the league go through automatically, and then there's a big chunk of clubs that go through to the knockouts or the playoffs, sorry,
Hmm.
which are knockouts. Then you've got to be targeting that for sure.
Hmm.
And then beyond that, who knows? I guess it's a lottery about if you get through who you draw, whether it's a home tie first or second. Um, I think that will have a part to play in how far we go in the competition. But
Yeah.
I think we could definitely be one of those dark horses, those teams where the bigger clubs will say, "Oh, okay, oh Villa, great, okay, we've got them, that's good," and then they're sort of in for a bit of a rude awakening.
Yeah. I think
Um,
I think we can I think we've got a big win in us against one of the big boys. I
yeah.
do. Just the way we play against teams like Arsenal. Last season we beat City at home. I don't see why we can't repeat that in the Champions League against one of the big teams.
No, and we are a complete unknown. I mean, even
Mm.
Newcastle last season. Okay, yes, they hadn't played in the Champions League for a number of seasons, but they played a lot more recently than us. I mean, we haven't played there for 42 years,
Do,
so
do,
we are a complete not unknown.
would you know what I'd note about Newcastle that I'd compare to us is that I think that we're better set for European football than Newcastle because I think that Newcastle's style I've always called them a flat track bully team. I think they are the team that hit puberty when you were 13 and you turned up in inner city Birmingham and there were all these lads who were about 6'2" with full beards already. You're like, these guys are 13. Because that's what Newcastle are, big Dan Burn and, Longstaff and all these tall, physical lads. But they play a very physical, strong style.
Mm.
If it was professional wrestling, it'd be called
They're a
Japanese
bit of
strong
a
style.
footballing tsunami. They just try to basically just wash over you. I mean, we
Yeah.
we kind of experienced that in the first game of last season, didn't we? That sort of like we were just sort of they just hit us just with
Mm.
everything, and we couldn't really just respond. We were a bit
Yeah.
rabbit in the headlights for everything.
And
But yeah, I think if you have a bit of nous and tactical awareness, you can sort of manage that a bit
yes.
better. And I think you need that, as you say, in Europe. I think you need to manage games a lot better, which Unai is very, very good at.
But I also think the thing with Newcastle's approach is that it's exhausting, and it's also why
Mm,
I'm not sure Eddie Howe would work as an England manager because I think it's such an exhausting and physically demanding style that I don't I think that might be partly why they got so many injuries last season. Trying to balance up Europe and the Premier League, and I can see why they fell off. Whereas I think Villa, Unai Emery's experience of Europe is so useful because Eddie Howe doesn't have that.
yeah,
And I think that there was one stat tonight in about, I think it came up in maybe like the 50th minute, and it showed that young boys collectively had run 4 kilometres further than Aston Villa, which I thought was a fascinating stat. And it's that sort of thing that Villa, we're not, we don't actually, we sort of go against modern football. We don't actually press that hard.
No.
And it's almost like it's conserving energy for the games that we're playing in. Um, yeah, I think we're tonight we looked just I think composed, didn't have to overexert ourselves, and hopefully that's kind of going to help us get through the season without, having the same problems Newcastle had last season.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I suppose it's that old saying: you obviously work a lot harder with the ball than without the ball than with it. So,
Mm,
if you can retain possession, retain the ball, then the game is controlled at your pace. You
yeah.
play as fast as you want to play it, and it's up to the other side to win the ball back. And so they're putting in the hard yards. They're the ones knackering themselves out trying to win the ball. And obviously Unai's way of playing football is constantly recycling possession.
Mm,
So if the avenues are closed down one side, players will just turn around, play the ball back to a Torres. He'll try and find another outlet down the left-hand side. If that doesn't work, we'll play it back. And we talked about this when Unai took over, that getting used to Unai's style of football for a lot of Villa fans took a bit of time. Because
mm,
I think a lot of fans were like, why isn't he hoofing it forward? Or why isn't he like looking for
yeah.
that, champagne pass? That's not Unai's style. Which obviously makes complete sense because why would you rush it if there's no obvious outlet?
Mm,
And if you've got the ball, keep the ball because if you've got the ball, you've got a better chance of scoring anyway. You
yeah.
got the only chance of scoring. So yeah, that's what we saw tonight. That's what we've seen over the course of Unai's tenureship at as Villa manager. So yeah, as I said, brilliant start to Champions League, Frankie.
What
Wow, we're in
what
it.
what's your plan? When Villa win the Champions League later at the end of this season, what are your
Yeah.
plans for what we're gonna do that night? Like obviously, we'll be there in person. Professor and I fly us over to give a inspirational team talk. Yeah. But
Yeah.
aside from that, if we're go to Birmingham, go to Kiel
Yeah,
Castle
well,
again,
I think it's sort of Champions League final night for sure. Unai will fly us over as as the All Villa No Villa podcast boys to give that
dignitaries.
pre-match, to give the pre-match team talk. Maybe play a couple of the spicy questions to the boys just to make them think about some really important issues that we've
Yeah.
brought up in previous shows. Yeah, take their mind off things, just relax
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
You could do a couple of your impressions, Frankie, your Donald Trumps or whatever.
Thanks, I
Um,
could do that anytime. Anytime.
John Duran sort of looking at you quizzically.
Cricket's
Um,
respect
he's
this.
like,
He's never scored a goal in his life, folks, I tell you.
why am I a Shakespearean character? What do you mean
Yeah,
by
yeah,
that? I don't
yeah,
understand.
yeah.
So I mean, I'm just very excited. I'm very excited, and I'm probably, it's not, it's still September, so I've probably got that still new season buzz about my way of thinking. But
Mm.
but I mean, so far so good, Frankie. It's
Yeah,
looking very, very positive.
it's looking very good. The squad depth's looking good. There's been numerous games this season I've come out and thought we look like a really good football team. We look like a really, really good football team. And I think my main concern at the moment is the goals we're conceding. Every Premier League game this season we've conceded, and we look a bit chaotic at times, which is a repeat of what's been happening since about January.
Yeah.
I really want us to sort that out. I wonder if against Wolves that might be the game we get a clean sheet, just because I think he's going to bring Carlos and Conser in. And wouldn't be surprised if that's a game where we just shut down, ease it out, one or two, and hopefully, hopefully Wolves don't turn up and Gary O'Neill us or something. But yeah, we're looking good.
Yeah, the last point to end on is just the other thing that might stop us is injuries.
Yeah,
I know our squad depth is looking good, but any injuries to key areas is always going to cost us. And Watkins had an ice pack on his ankle
I saw that.
on the bench, and he was taken off relatively early.
Mm.
Um, Slightly concerned by that.
Hopefully it's not too serious. The fact that he came off in the 60th minute made me think Unai Emery might have gone at halftime. He might have said at halftime there was a problem, and Unai Emery might
Mm,
have said, "Just give me another 15,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
we'll bring Duran on." So I'd like to think that's what happened. That he knew these slight knock, he can probably get through it, and then hopefully it's just he's okay. Yeah, not too worried by that one. I was
yeah,
more worried when the guy stood on Ramsey's foot. I was like, oh,
yeah,
I was,
yeah.
I was ready to go book a flight to Switzerland and go sort him out. But the thing is, I'd go sort him out and then see how tall and big he is. That Gambula guy, I'm like, might turn around now. Actually, the
Exactly. Yeah.
sprint back across the Swiss Alps.
Just check yourself into Dignitas and just go that way instead. rather than face a giant young boys defender or whatever.
Yeah, I used to consider going to Dignitas Aston when following Villa over the last 10 years.
After the 15-16 season,
Oh
yeah.
my God, yeah. When we
Sort of
when we
checking
lost
the
like
pamphlets.
when we were losing bloody 6-0 at home in the first half against Liverpool, that was
Yeah. Hello. Is that Digna's house? Yeah.
yeah,
How
put in a
how soon
few
can you
phone
how
calls.
soon can I arrange a flight? Yes. Well, there we are, Frankie. That is what a, what a way to end the
What a
show.
cheery way to
A
end the
cheery
show.
way to end the show. But
Yeah.
overall, I think 95% of that show was very positive.
Yes.
So that's good. Okay, we'll end things there. Thank you everybody for listening. I've been your host, George Zielinski. Frankie, catch you later.
Catch you a bit, George. Up the Villa.
Up the mighty Euro Villa, and it is goodbye from me. We'll be back again soon, of course, to pick the bones out of the Wolves game, I'm sure. But until then, come on, Super Aston Villa.